Welcome to NTD News Today. Here are today's top stories. The Supreme Court has agreed to review an Obama-era policy on rejecting asylum seekers in Mexico. What we know about the decision. The FAA has ended its shutdown-triggered flight reductions. What officials are saying as airports slowly get back to normal. President Trump is changing direction on the Epstein records, telling Republicans to vote for their release as lawmakers prepare for a high-profile showdown. And a Trump-Mamdani meeting could be in the works as the pair signal a willingness to get things done for New York. And Trump defends Tucker Carlson over a recent interview. Meanwhile, the U.S. is designating a Venezuelan cartel as a foreign terrorist organization. Officials say it's headed by the president of Venezuela. In his acceptance speech, Cruz reflected on his love of cinema, and he paid tribute to everyone who makes films possible. Choreographer Debbie Allen and production designer Wynn Thomas were also presented with honorary Oscars for their lifetime of work. Cruz has been nominated for 4 Oscars over the course of his career, as Best Actor for Born on the 4th of July, and Jerry Maguire as Best Supporting Actor for Magnolia, and for Best Picture for his role as a producer on Top Gun Maverick. But Cruz has never won. Next, an update on the case against former FBI Director James Comey. A federal judge has ordered the Justice Department to turn over documents from the grand jury indictment. The Supreme Court has agreed to review an Obama-era immigration policy that allowed border officials to reject asylum seekers before they arrived in the United States. Under the metering policy, potential asylum seekers were turned away before they set foot on American soil. The Biden administration ended that policy, but Trump officials are considering bringing it back. Federal law requires that the government process asylum seekers who arrive at ports of entry. In 2018, the first Trump administration had border agents simply turn back potential asylum seekers to Mexico before they entered the U.S. An immigrant rights group and several asylum seekers filed a lawsuit challenging the policy. An appeals court sided with the immigrants, and the Trump administration appealed to the Supreme Court. The Trump administration argues that presidential administrations should have the option of reviving the metering practice when border conditions justify it. The court will hear arguments next year. The BBC says it's determined to fight any legal action filed by President Trump. Trump said he was likely to sue the British broadcaster this week for splicing together excerpts of his January 6, 2021 speech when the Capitol was breached. Trump said he would sue for up to $5 billion. BBC Chair Samir Shah apologized to Trump in a letter last week. And today, Shah warned staff in an email about the possibility of legal action, but also maintained that the BBC's position has not changed. It feels that there is no basis for a defamation case and is determined to fight. President Trump is shifting his position on the push to release files related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The president is now urging Republicans to vote in favor of the resolution when it reaches the House floor this week. Trump previously opposed the Democrat-led discharge petition. It gained enough signatures after Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva of Arizona was sworn in, triggering a vote on releasing the documents. Several Republicans, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mace, Thomas Massie, and Lauren Boebert, have signed on. Others, such as Congressman Don Bacon, say they will support the measure. House Speaker Mike Johnson has signaled that the vote will proceed. Trump says Republicans have nothing to hide. He also directed the Justice Department to investigate Epstein's ties to former President Bill Clinton and other public figures. Thanksgiving is in just 10 days, and travelers already have a reason to be thankful. The FAA this morning ended its flight reduction order, allowing normal air traffic to resume. Here's more.
I think we're going to have a smooth, hopefully, Thanksgiving travel season.
Airlines are resuming their normal schedules in the U.S. today. The FAA says it's lifting flight restrictions that affected 40 major airports during the government shutdown. A joint statement from that agency and the Transportation Secretary cites, quote, safety trends and the steady decline of staffing trigger events in air traffic control facilities.
It does appear that air traffic controllers are working. The call-outs are minimal, and they're all getting bonuses now if they came to work. So I think the morale there is up, as well as the TSA.
Union leaders say it was hard for air traffic controllers to work full-time without pay during the shutdown.
The stresses, the pressure, the fatigue is setting in. Air traffic controllers are texting, I don't even have enough money to put gas in my car to come to work.
The news might be a relief for people flying over Thanksgiving weekend. That's the busiest air travel period of the year, according to TSA data. Experts say passengers should still check airline apps for delays or cancellations, but for more typical reasons.
I think the things we should be looking out for are weather-related incidents that could kind of throw the system out of whack or outages. But overall, I think things are looking good.
This year, roads and airports during the Thanksgiving holiday period are expected to be busier than ever. The AAA predicts nearly 82 million people will travel at least 50 miles from home during the period that runs from the Tuesday before Thanksgiving to Monday, December 1st. That's 1.6 million more travelers compared to last Thanksgiving, and a new record. AAA projects the majority of people, at least 73 million, will travel by car. 6 million U.S. travelers are expected to take domestic flights over the Thanksgiving holiday period, a slight increase from last year. Florida is the most popular domestic destination because of its weather, theme parks, and cruise ports. And tensions are increasing between the U.S. and Venezuela. The Trump administration is designating a Venezuelan cartel, allegedly run by the country's president, a foreign terrorist organization. Here are the details.
Is about protecting America from foreign terrorists.
The Department of State has announced it will designate the Venezuelan group known as the Cartel de los Soles as a foreign terrorist organization. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the designation takes effect November 24th. The Trump administration alleges the organization is led by senior Venezuelan government figures, including President Nicolas Maduro, and involved in international cocaine smuggling. Maduro has denied these allegations. Rubio said Sunday the Cartel de los Soles is responsible for terrorist violence throughout the Western Hemisphere. The designation will expand federal authorities' ability to pursue the group. It makes it a federal crime for anyone in the U.S. to assist the cartel and allows federal officials to freeze any assets connected to it. Trump was asked yesterday if the U.S. government can target assets inside Venezuela.
It allows us to do that, but we haven't said we're going to do that. And we may be having some discussions with Maduro, and we'll see how that turns out. They would like to talk.
The move comes after the Treasury Department earlier this year labeled the cartel a specially designated global terrorist. Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent says Sunday's action further exposes the Maduro regime's facilitation of narco-terrorism. The announcement comes as U.S. forces continue a series of military strikes on vessels they say are involved in narcotics smuggling. This weekend, the military carried out its 21st such operation, bringing the total casualty count to 83 people. U.S. Southern Command said Secretary of War Pete Hegseth ordered Saturday's strike in the Eastern Pacific, which targeted a vessel linked to a designated terrorist organization. Southern Command said the boat was smuggling narcotics along a known trafficking route. The military said 3 people on board were killed. U.S. military activity against suspected drug traffickers has expanded across waters near Venezuela and Colombia. President Trump has come under criticism from both Democrats and Republicans for not seeking congressional approval for these strikes. He explained his decision yesterday.
I said, go to Congress and let them know we're not letting drugs come through Mexico. We're not letting them come through Venezuela. And let Congress know about it. We don't have to get their approval, but I think letting them know is good.
Senator Rand Paul and Congressman Thomas Massie, both Republicans, have described the strikes as an overreach of executive authority. Paul has described them as summary executions and extrajudicial killings. The Department of Justice has stated that military personnel involved in the strikes are not liable for prosecution.
And President Trump says Republicans are working on legislation that will impose sanctions on any country doing business with Russia.
The Republicans are putting in legislation that very tough. It's sanctioning, et cetera, on any country doing business with Russia. They may add Iran to that, as you know. I suggested it. So any country that does business with Russia will be very severely sanctioned. We may add Iran to the formula, yeah.
The Kremlin said today it hopes another meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin and President Trump can take place soon. It says both sides need to complete what it calls the necessary preparation. Russia says both sides agreed that a summit requires deep preparation to be productive. Putin and Trump last met in August at a summit in Alaska focused on possible steps toward ending the war in Ukraine. Plans for a follow-up summit in Budapest were announced last month. President Trump later canceled that, saying the timing did not feel right. And Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman will visit the White House tomorrow for talks with President Trump. The pair will discuss defense, energy, tech, and potentially nuclear energy. The president seeks to cash in on a $600 billion investment pledge from the Saudis made during Trump's visit to the Middle East earlier this year. Next, New York City Mayor Eric Adams stopped in Jerusalem over the weekend as part of an official visit to Israel. Israeli President Isaac Herzog today thanked Adams for his support during the war and commended his conduct as mayor. Here's Adams.
We want to clearly send the right message that 49% of New Yorkers made it clear that they don't embrace the philosophy of anti-Israel. 49% of New Yorkers. And so our city is more divided than it has ever been. But you must know that we still consider Israel as an ally and as a friend. And I'm here today as I leave office to state I would not be leaving my advocacy for Israel and for the Jewish people all over the globe.
The outgoing mayor was shown the tunnels underneath the Western Wall where archaeological digs are taking place. Adams called off his bid for re-election in September with his approval rating at a record low. The race was won by self-declared Democratic Socialist Zoran Mamdani of the Democratic Party, who has been vocal in his support of Palestinians in the Gaza conflict. And a possible thaw in a recent feud, President Trump yesterday said he plans to meet with New York City's mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani. Trump says the pair will work something out.
The mayor of New York, I will say, would like to meet with us and we'll work something out. But he would like to come to Washington and meet, and we'll work something out. We want to see everything work out well for New York.
Trump has taken aim at Mamdani for months, calling him a communist. Trump predicted New York would be ruined if the Democratic Socialist was elected. He also threatened to pull federal money from the city over Mamdani's policies. In his election night victory speech, Mamdani said he wanted New York to show the country how to defeat the president. But the day after, the incoming mayor also said he was willing to work with anyone, including the president, if it could help New Yorkers. And Trump defended conservative commentator Tucker Carlson yesterday over his recent interview with Nick Fuentes.
We've had some great interviews with Tucker Carlson, but you can't tell him who to interview. I mean, if he wants to interview Nick Fuentes, I don't know much about him, but if he wants to do it, get the word out. Let him, people have to decide. Ultimately, people have to decide.
Fuentes appeared to appreciate Trump's sentiment, posting, "Thank you, Mr. President," along with video of his interaction with reporters. Carlson had a sit-down on his podcast last month with Fuentes that touched off a controversy among conservatives. It's not the first time Trump has been asked about Fuentes. 3 years ago, Fuentes came to a dinner at Mar-a-Lago along with the rapper Ye, formerly known as Kanye West. Trump at the time said he had not previously met Fuentes and knew nothing about him and didn't know he was coming with Ye. SNAP benefits are now operating under updated federal rules. This follows a delay caused by the recent government shutdown. Beneficiaries must meet new work and citizenship requirements to continue receiving food assistance. Eligibility is now limited to U.S. citizens, nationals, lawful permanent residents, Cuban and Haitian entrants, and citizens from the Marshall Islands, Micronesia, and Palau. Refugees, individuals granted asylum, certain Afghan and Ukrainian nationals, and others who were previously eligible no longer qualify. The law also expands work requirements. Able-bodied adults without dependents must work, volunteer, or take part in training for at least 20 hours a week or 80 hours a month to maintain benefits. USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins says everyone will have to reapply for SNAP benefits. She's revealed there's fraud and mismanagement in the Supplemental Food Assistance Program. The secretary said there are 186,000 deceased people still enrolled in the program and more than 500,000 people who are enrolled twice in the program. Joining us now to discuss changes to the SNAP program is political analyst Keith Gross. Good to have you with us, Keith. First, your response to the recent developments.
Well, the revelation of massive fraud is certainly going to give adequate reason to this administration to force people to reapply as they've given an interest in doing. So eligibility for these benefits really stems from a 2008 law, the Food and Nutrition Act, passed by Congress, but it's up to the administration to determine who qualifies and to determine the schedule on which they must re-qualify. So naturally, there is a strong governmental interest in preventing fraud, and recent evidence of fraud is going to prompt this administration to carry through with their current order that everyone reapply.
To that point, so there's a strong reason for the federal government to ensure there's no fraud. I've heard some commentators saying there's not as much motivation, say, for the state level authorities to ensure that, and they're the ones that do get audited around every 6 months. What do you think about this tension between the state level and federal level authorities trying to make this system work?
Well, I mean, looking at the funds flow, obviously the funds are going to flow from the federal government to the state government. And while the state government is generally the on-the-ground component where the funds are actually distributed, the federal government can go in and take a look at qualifications and verify that there's not fraud and abuse. The administration has reasonably broad administrative discretion on how to go about ensuring that the people receiving the funds are in fact qualified to receive the funds. The administration is not required to just blindly write a check to these states and allow them to distribute the assets to whomever they choose.
Now, there were recent court orders regarding SNAP and needing to go ahead and pay them out. And how does that interact with the legal authority the government has to assert that people reapply at the same time?
That's a good question. And looking at some of the recent court decisions regarding SNAP, it was more about courts telling the administration that despite the lack of congressionally allocated funding during the shutdown, the court was still ordering the administration to hand out money that was not necessarily available to hand out. That hasn't wound all the way through the court process yet, but no doubt the Supreme Court and appellate courts are going to strike down those lower court decisions that purported to dictate to the administration how to disperse funds despite the lack of a congressional allocation of those funds. There's not going to be a lot of overlap here. Here, what we're seeing is more of an analysis of eligibility. We're not having an argument where the administration asserts that the funds don't need to be distributed at all, or even to whom they must be distributed. We're seeing a proper exercise of administrative authority by the Trump administration to ensure that the people receiving the benefits are in fact qualified to receive them under the law.
And could this potentially lead to disruption or gaps in benefits for eligible families?
It could, because the way the administration appears to be pursuing this, it could create a mass reapplication. If everyone is required to reapply all at once, the massive number of applications could cause interruptions in the benefit distribution. That could give rise in court to a due process claim where the administration's actions essentially force everyone into a delay where they can't get their benefits on time. That can create a due process issue under some case law that stretches back to the 1970s, where the courts basically ruled that welfare benefits could not be taken away without a hearing.
And what procedures do you think could ensure that that kind of thing is minimized and also fraud going forward is minimized?
Well, of course, I'm not inside the administration, but I would think their counsel would be advising them to set up the reapplication demand in batches that can be processed in a reasonable period of time. You don't want to tell all 42 million people that are currently on this program that they need to reapply on the same. That's going to bog down the system and cause true chaos. But if you told a certain number that they have to reapply each day for the next many days and divided it into batches that could be reasonably processed, that would solve a lot of the problems, and it would kill the argument of any opposing party seeking to raise a due process claim in court.
Finally, is there anything missing from this particular debate on SNAP? It's been going on for some time, but especially regarding the aspect of fraud and abuse, those allegations, that those numbers have recently just come out, that you think is kind of missing from the public debate at this point in time?
The main thing I see that's missing is congressional action. We see a lot of effort from the administration to do everything within their power to limit the amount of fraud. But But what I'm not seeing is congressional action to seriously change the way this program is administered and the way it is distributed, because the number of people that have gone onto these programs just since COVID in the last, say, 5 years is dramatic. Since the Biden administration was in office, nearly twice as many people have started getting some of these benefits. And that really, it's on Congress to go through and rewrite these programs, and perhaps to go back to the way it was a long time ago when people received actual food instead of what effectively serves as a credit card now.
Well, it's great to have your insights on this today, and I'm sure there will be plenty more updates coming out soon for us all to examine the program more deeply. Really appreciate your insights. Keith Gross, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And President Trump is pushing to let his tariffs directly benefit Americans with $2,000 rebate checks. Lawmakers may need to pass a new law to make it possible. NTD's Melina Weiskup reports.
President Trump is eyeing ways to allow Americans to directly feel the benefits of his tariffs. He aims to pave the way for sending $2,000 checks to middle and low-income families sometime next year.
It's a lot of money, but we've taken in a lot of money from tariffs. The tariffs allow us to give a dividend if we want to do that. Now we're going to do a dividend, and we're also going to be reducing debt.
The idea would need approval from Congress to take effect. Some conservative Republicans expressing openness to the idea.
Being able to show the results to the American people, allowing them to keep more of their hard-earned money, I certainly hope that that's something that Congress takes a look at.
Others have expressed skepticism. When asked in a radio interview, House Speaker Mike Johnson said the federal debt should be paid down first. The White House's Economic Council director said the math works.
If you look at how much tariff revenue has been coming in, then there would actually be enough room to cover those checks and not go into the rest of the budget. Yeah.
Senator Josh Hawley previously introduced a bill to give $600 tariff rebates to Americans and their dependent children. The idea comes as the Supreme Court is weighing a lawsuit that challenges Trump's authority to impose tariffs. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett said there have been mixed signals in the job market and that the labor market could be slowing down. But he also sees some positive signs, speaking on CNBC.
Purchasing power has gone up. So real wages, that's W divided by P for our technical people in the audience, have gone up by about $1,200 this year. So the way to think about it is that we've dug a $3,000 hole because of Biden policies, and we've gained $1,200 on the way out already, which should give you a great deal of hope for the future that the wage increases that we're seeing will continue, and even if inflation stays positive, make it so that people feel way better when they go to the grocery store and to buy a car.
Economists say a weakening labor market could prompt the Federal Reserve to again lower interest rates by 25 points next month. Hassett said people are incorrectly blaming President Trump for the current inflation that was inherited from the Biden administration. He says the Trump administration hasn't totally fixed it yet, but that many different measures are underway. Hassett also said that higher purchasing power will make things more affordable despite lingering high prices. And dozens are arrested in North Carolina. Agents took more than 80 illegal immigrants into custody in Charlotte on the first day of border enforcement operations. NTD's Daniel Monahan has the details, including a harrowing incident when someone allegedly launched their van at federal agents.
The Department of Homeland Security announced Saturday it was launching Operation Charlotte's Web, sending a surge of law enforcement resources to the city. DHS released a list of what it called the worst criminal illegal immigrants who it said had been released back onto North Carolina streets because of sanctuary policies. Gregory Bavino, Commander-at-Large of the U.S. Border Patrol, documented several of the arrests on social media yesterday, which he said had risen to 81. Bavino quoted from the book Charlotte's Web when posting about the operation, writing, "Wherever the wind takes us, high, low, near, far, east, west, north, south, we take to the breeze, we go as we please." Bavino shared a video of arrests along with the post. Bavino also shared posts including pictures of some of the people the Trump administration had detained in Charlotte. One man who was arrested yesterday had an alleged history of repeated drunk driving incidents. Bavino wrote, "We arrested him, taking him off the streets of Charlotte, so he can't continue to ignore our laws and drive intoxicated on the same roads you and your loved ones are on." Another had charges for alleged hit and run and DUI. Yet another with a criminal history of arrests for aggravated assault, assault with a dangerous weapon, and DUI. In a separate incident, Homeland Security released a video of a U.S. citizen allegedly using a large van as a weapon, driving it at agents during an operation. Officials say he fled, prompting a dangerous high-speed chase through a densely populated area, and that he repeatedly tried to ram law enforcement vehicles before being boxed in. Agents say they found a firearm inside the vehicle after arresting the driver. DHS also pushed back on claims that a Hispanic man had been shot during another enforcement action. Assistant Homeland Security Secretary Tricia McLaughlin posted a video of the man on a stretcher and said he had suffered a panic attack, was taken to a hospital, and then attempted to escape by climbing into ceiling tiles before being apprehended. Republican Congressman Mark Harris welcomed the federal surge, speaking on News Nation.
I think people recognize it's welcome. It will help bring crime down. There had been a surge of 200% of murders in uptown Charlotte specifically.
Harris warned that the stakes are high in Charlotte.
These are serious criminal, illegal aliens that they are here to deal with. This is not a time to play games.
On the Democrat side, Representative Alma Adams said Charlotte's immigrant community is a proud part of the Queen City and that she will not stand by and watch her constituents be intimidated or harassed, adding that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity. Border Patrol Commander Bavino responded, writing, "Representative Adams, perhaps you should learn the difference between an illegal alien and an immigrant." The granddaughter of Charlotte's Web author E.B. White criticized the use of the book's name in the operation, saying White believed in the rule of law, due process, and didn't condone what she called fear-mongering. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for that report. We're turning now to an alleged gambling scheme in pro basketball. There are reports the NBA has asked the Los Angeles Lakers and several other teams to turn over documents as part of its expanding investigation into illegal gambling. According to ESPN, league investigators have already collected phones from at least a dozen Lakers employees, including 2 staff members with close ties to LeBron James. The NBA says the requests are standard procedure and do not imply wrongdoing. The probe follows federal indictments that shocked the league, including charges against Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, and former coach Damon Jones. Cases tied to the indictments involved the sharing of non-public injury information and rigged wagering schemes that federal prosecutors say netted hundreds of thousands of dollars. The NBA has signaled it may tighten injury reporting rules. And 2 popular weight loss drugs will now cost less if you pay with cash instead of going through insurance. Novo Nordisk announced today that it's offering the first 2 monthly doses of Wegovy and Ozempic for $199. The discount applies to the 2 lowest doses of the medications and expires at the end of March. Additional refills will drop to $349 a month from $499, also for the lowest dosage. The drug maker has faced increased competition in the GLP-1 market as compounding pharmacies offer less expensive versions. It says the discounted drugs will be available at Costco, GoodRx, and Weight Watchers, as well as at many retail pharmacies. Rival drug maker Eli Lilly is also lowering its prices for GLP-1 medications. Its discounted products will be available on Trump RX when it launches early next year. I'm Stephanie Cox, and this is World Watch. A luxury heist today in central Rome. 3 masked men smashed a car through the glass entrance of a Louis Vuitton storage facility. Police said they stole high-end leather goods before fleeing. The alarm was triggered at around 1:30 a.m. after the thieves used the vehicle as a battering ram to break into the premises. They took a side street less monitored than the luxury shopping avenue nearby. Once inside, the group quickly grabbed bags and other merchandise. Investigators say the operation appeared carefully planned. The value of the stolen goods has not yet been determined. The German government said it's resuming exports of military equipment to Israel. Germany is the 2nd largest exporter of arms to Israel after the United States. And it announced a suspension of some arms exports to Israel in August amid mounting popular pressure over the war. The decision affected weapons and systems that could be used in Gaza, but not others deemed necessary for Israel to defend itself from external attacks. A spokesperson said the restrictions will be lifted from November 24th. And new footage shows a U.S.-led command center in southern Israel overseeing President Trump's plan to end the Gaza war. The Civil Military Coordination Center, or CMCC, is staffed by soldiers and civilians from the U.S., Israel, and several other countries. Britain, Germany, France, Canada, Jordan, and the United Arab Emirates are among the nationals also present. The center started operating last month after a ceasefire came into effect. The CMCC is tasked with monitoring the ceasefire as well as helping to increase the delivery of aid into Gaza. President Trump's Gaza proposal faces a critical test today at the United Nations. The Security Council is scheduled to vote on a U.S.-backed resolution aimed at turning Gaza's fragile ceasefire into a longer-term peace plan. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected parts of the plan, specifically language pointing toward a future Palestinian state, while Hamas has also warned against the proposal. The draft needs 9 votes to pass, but China or Russia could veto it. The U.S. plan would launch a temporary Board of Peace, chaired by President Trump. It would also deploy an international force to eventually replace Israeli troops in Gaza. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is in France today, signing a major weapons deal. Ukraine is set to receive 100 French fighter jets, among other things. This comes after weeks-long talks to see how France could provide more military support despite political and budgetary instability in Paris. Zelensky thanked France for its support and commented on the deal while in Paris earlier today.
Most importantly, we're setting a direction. We will together increase the industrial and technological potential of Ukraine and France. This means not only defense, this is literally the strength in life. This literally means jobs for our people, development of companies, development of communities.
Besides the 100 fighter jets, Ukraine is also set to receive French radars and 8 air defense systems, each with 6 launching systems. Zelensky said each one of those launching systems means that more Ukrainian lives will be saved. Today marks Zelensky's 9th visit to Paris since Russia's invasion over 3 years ago. His talks were meant to strengthen Ukraine's defense as the country enters another winter under Russia's bombardment of its energy infrastructure. And an explosion damaged a Polish railway track on a route to Ukraine over the weekend. Prime Minister Donald Tusk today called the blast an unprecedented act of sabotage. He said he would catch those responsible for an incident he said it could have ended in tragedy. The blast follows a wave of arson, sabotage, and cyber attacks that has hit Poland and other European countries since the start of the war in Ukraine. Warsaw has in the past held Russia responsible, saying Poland has become one of Moscow's biggest targets due to its role as a hub for aid to Kyiv. Russia has repeatedly denied being responsible for acts of sabotage. And a Bangladesh court has sentenced its ousted prime minister to death for crimes against humanity. Here's what we've learned so far.
We have decided to inflict her with only one sentence, that is sentence of death.
A verdict of death for Bangladesh's ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina on Monday, concluding a months-long trial that found her guilty of ordering a deadly crackdown on a student-led uprising last year. Hasina was not present in court and has been living in exile in New Delhi. It's the most dramatic legal action against a former Bangladeshi leader since independence in 1971. Prosecutors had said that they had uncovered evidence of her direct command to use lethal force to suppress the student-led uprising. A United Nations report said up to 1,400 people may have been killed during the protests between July and August last year, with thousands more injured. 78-year-old Hasina was given a life sentence under charges for crimes against humanity and the death sentence for the killings. In response, Hasina said the ruling has come from a, quote, rigged tribunal presided over by an unelected government. Her defence argued that the charges were baseless and politically motivated. Bangladesh's Domestic War Crimes Court sentenced her amid tight security ahead of parliamentary elections expected in February, in which Hasina's Awami League party has been barred from contesting. Before the verdict, protesters swarmed the estate of her father's home in a standoff with police. Bangladesh has been tense ahead of the ruling. Over the past few days, there have been 30 crude bomb explosions and dozens of vehicles have been torched. Bangladesh has been governed by an interim administration, headed by a Nobel Peace Laureate since Hasina fled. Hasina's son and advisor, Sajib Wazid, told Reuters on the eve of the verdict that they would not appeal the verdict unless a democratically elected government took office with the Awami League's participation.
And now for your sports news, we're joined by NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, there's so much going on in sports right now, but let's start with the NFL. Aaron Rodgers got an injury yesterday. What's up with that?
Yeah, he kind of fell on his hand, wrist area while throwing the ball away. This is on a 2nd and goal play late in the second quarter. He stayed in one more play before coming out. He did not return there. It looked like he had some blood on his hand when he came for that one play, but this is his non-throwing, hand or wrist area.
Okay.
Now, ESPN, though, they are reporting that the Steelers are concerned he has a slight break in his wrist. Now, apparently he'll be further evaluated today, so we hope we have some definitive news soon anyway. In any case, Steelers beat the Bengals 34-12. Now, elsewhere in the league, Browns quarterback Dylan Gabriel missed the second half of their game against the Ravens with a concussion, which meant Shedeur Sanders made his long-awaited NFL debut. Sanders, though, finished his 4 for 16 passing for 47 yards and an interception. Browns lost 23-16. And Atlanta quarterback Michael Penix suffered a knee injury in the second quarter of yesterday's loss to the Panthers. ESPN is reporting it's potentially a season-ending injury, and that Atlanta is seeking a second opinion. So, Steph, it's a pretty dangerous game here, especially for these quarterbacks.
I hope Aaron's okay as well.
I hope so too. They're like sitting ducks there in the pocket. People are trying to tackle them.
Yes, it's true.
It's hard.
It's hard. Okay, but let's look at elsewhere in the league. The Broncos hit a last-second goal, and they actually beat the Chiefs. What's going on there?
Well, Denver now has a really good chance at dethroning Kansas City here in the AFC West Division. Now, the Chiefs have won this division 9 straight years, but now they're just 5-5. Broncos moved to 9-2 with the win. So Chiefs are down 3.5 games with just 7 games left. Plus, they'd have to pass the LA Chargers, who are 7-4. Now, meanwhile, all 5 of Kansas City's losses this year have been just by 1 score. That's 8 points or less. Coming into the season, they had won 17 straight 1-score games dating back to the playoffs. Last year, I kept saying how fortunate the Chiefs were to keep winning. This year, the opposite has basically happened. So that Chiefs magic has appeared to kind of run out. So they're going to have to kind of rally to make the playoffs.
I mean, what do you think is behind that shift? Because that's quite dramatic.
I think they were pretty fortunate last year. If it's a close game, that was 19-19, and then the Broncos hit that last-second field goal, as you said. I don't know if I'm going to say luck, but the Chiefs had, some things go their way for them last year. This year, they haven't quite gone their way at the end of these games. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. Hopefully, Chiefs still make the playoffs. Otherwise, I'll be heartbroken.
Right. Well, that just won't do.
Yeah,
we gotta make sure.
A few months and be in mourning, obviously.
We're all here to comfort you, so. But we'll keep an eye on that. The jury's out. Okay. So shifting gears to tennis, Jannik Sinner beat Carlos Alcaraz yesterday in the championship of the ATP Finals. How does that affect everything?
As far as the rankings go, Alcaraz had already gotten enough points to stay at number 1 at the year end. But you mentioned that. Sinner beat Alcaraz 7-6, 7-5 yesterday to win the ATP Finals for the 2nd straight season. As I mentioned, though, Alcaraz only had to get to the semifinals to get enough points to stay ahead to be number 1 at the end of the year, which is kind of a big deal in tennis. I mean, the rankings never stop. They're rolling 52-week accumulation of points, but to be number 1 at the end of the season usually means you had the best season. It's hard to argue with Alcaraz's season. He had won 70 of his 79 matches. He also won 2 of the 4 Grand Slams. Sinner, meanwhile, will finish number 2. He had a great season as well. We went 57-6, he won the other 2 Grand Slams. Now, these two, of course, have really separated themselves from the rest of the pack. They took all 4 Grand Slams this year for the 2nd straight season, and they met in the finals at the last 3 of them, which has never actually happened before. There's a huge gap between number 2 ranked Jannik Sinner now and number 3 ranked Alexander Zverev. Sinner actually has twice as many points as Zverev, so they've really separated themselves. Nima Djokovic is number 4. We forget about that guy almost anymore. But tennis, meanwhile, they kind of go into a hiatus until January, and then we get the Australian Open.
Right?
I know, one of your favorite venues in January.
I've never been, but
You've been
I
meaning
gotta
to,
make
I
it.
know.
Yeah, I have. Okay. Thank you, Dave, for the sports update. Good to have you on.
You're welcome.
And next, a World War II veteran has celebrated his 101st birthday after becoming a published songwriter. His work is a collaboration with a Nashville-based nonprofit that helps veterans through the arts. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on the tune.
One day before his 101st birthday, If Freedom Was Free was released by Big Machine label group. The song is the work of World War II veteran Irving Locker. Locker details the daily struggles he and other service members faced. No toilets, no sinks, no showers, and living in a foxhole.
These are the things that come out. So with the song or with this, I've been doing this now since the war. Talking about this and trying to educate people as to what the hell it was.
Locker teamed up with nonprofit Creative Vets. The Nashville-based organization works with veterans in their artistic pursuits. Locker explains the meaning behind his work.
It means the truth. So many men died, and so many men lost their legs and their arms, and they're still in hospitals. It's 81 years ago, and they're still tied up and crippled up because they had to fight. So freedom is not free.
Locker landed at Utah Beach on D-Day. He says he became more spiritual as the war raged on.
I learned to be very honest with you, I was never conscious of God until the war. But I came so close to dying that I learned to thank God and use the simple phrase, "But for the grace of God go I."
Locker worked with Texas singer-songwriter Bart Crow and duo Johnny and Heidi Bulford, who also sing on the track. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Tom Cruise finally got an Oscar. The legendary actor accepted an Honorary Academy Award on Sunday at the Governor's Awards in California. If you have any feedback on our show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at news.today@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you.